Hello and welcome to another AGS Inspire Flip Masterclass. This week's session focuses on difficult conversations. As middle and senior leaders, we face many conversations now that can be potentially very, very difficult with the staff that we lead and manage. And in today's highly accountable world in education, we need to make sure that we're holding our staff accountable for their performance. And not all of these conversations can be nice and rosy. And these conversations can be increasingly difficult, especially if they are with your work colleagues and some people who are your friends. But actually, when we think about it, it's about strong leadership. We need to make sure that we're holding people to account for their performance, for the tasks that we're asking them to carry out, and sometimes as well for the for the posts and levels of responsibility that they're being paid for. So it's very, very important that we are able to have these conversations, because naturally, in most of us, we don't like conflict. And actually, the easiest thing to do is to kind of, duck the conversation or walk away from it. And it's a real test of leadership. And sometimes the first time you have to have one of these difficult conversations, it's not very nice. You don't look forward to it, and you'd rather be probably doing 100 other things than that. But actually, the more and more you get experience at it, the more and more you understand that's part of your job, that you can't be liked by everyone, and that as your position of responsibility in the school, that you are also being held to account. So you need to make sure that the people who are working in positions under you need to be held accountable as well. And sometimes that's not very nice. So in this session, we're going to look at some tips of how to do this, how to structure it, how to plan for it, the times, the places, the locations that are probably better better to do this, and also some tips on body language, and we'll do some role play as well within the session. But there's 2 or 3 things I just want you to think about before you come to this session. So the first thing is, how do we actually plan for the conversation? This is really important, because if you go into the session cold, or into the meeting cold, you can be caught out and you can be on the back foot, and the meeting can go in a very, very different way. So you need to make sure that you plan completely for the conversation. You need to really firstly plan for what the outcome is that you would like, your desired outcome, and you need to make sure then that you really kind of script and signpost the meeting so that actually you get to the desired outcome. Because in these difficult conversations, it's very easy for it to go off on a tangent into different ways, and you can get sidetracked, and you can get to the end of the meeting and think, well, that didn't really go the way I wanted it to go. Some tips for that then: you really need to think about all the different responses and preempt the responses you're going to get. So if you know the member of staff is not going to be very happy, or they're probably going to say this, or they might say that, well, you need to kind of second guess that, and you need to be able to script, well, what are your responses going to be when they say this, when they say that, or when they do this. You should never be left kind of surprised or cold in that meeting thinking, well, I wasn't really expecting that. You should really think about, well, what's the potential outcome here, what's going to happen, what are they going to say, how are they going to react, and then how am I going to actually turn that meeting around to be a positive one. What responses am I going to have if they say this or if they say that? So that's very, very important, is to really rehearse that meeting in your head, to potentially plan it out on paper, with some kind of bullet points and maybe some subheadings of the things that you want to talk about, and have your notes with you, so you feel in control of the meeting. It doesn't get away from you, and you know that you're always going to bring that person back to those notes and to those headings, so you can actually go through that structure as you want it to. You will sometimes find that you will get people who try to take you off on a tangent on purpose, to remove you away from your structure. So having that structure written down is a great focus point for you to then always go back to. Yes, that's great, however, we were talking about this. Or yes, that's great, but I really want to move on to this part here. And then you feel you're really in control of that meeting. Another tip and advice as well is that, like I mentioned earlier, it can be sometimes very difficult when you're talking to someone who you class maybe as a friend outside of the workplace, but also within the workplace as well. And you really need to make sure that you put aside any personal feelings there. And the great bit of advice that I was given early in my career was to remove the person from the situation completely and just focus on the issue. When you focus on the issue and you remove the person from that, it becomes quite clear, and it becomes a lot easier to manage that meeting, because you're just actually dealing with the issue. You're not dealing with the person. It's not becoming a personal issue. You're not attacking them as a person. Actually, you're just dealing with the issue. And if the issue is poor performance for whatever reason, let's just deal with that issue and actually remove any personal connotations or feelings around that. The next thing you need to do as well is when you're planning for this is you need to make sure that, like I said before, when you're preempting the responses, you need to be thinking about, well, how am I going to actually plan this and go through this so I get that outcome. And also the outcome is not necessarily the outcome that you might feel you want right now from that meeting, but actually the outcome needs to be linked to, well, is it performance related outcome? Is it related to their job description? Is it related to a skill target? What is it? Because it can be very easy that the outcome might feel to that person who's on the receiving end of this difficult conversation that it's a personal outcome that you want from it, that you want to impose your authority upon them, or you want to get something off your chest, and that then becomes kind of very, very it can become very strained. Whereas if all the time you're relating it back to an objective outcome, really, which is related to either one of the school's priorities or part of their contract, or something to do with their their performance related pay and their appraisal, then actually there can be no argument, because it then becomes a lot more black and white. It doesn't become subjective. It doesn't become something that you feel and they don't, and well, we've got a disagreement there. Actually, it's not about that. The outcome we want here is we want you to perform as per this document, or as per this target, or whatever it is. So again, that makes it a little bit more easy. It removes any personal feelings, and we're just talking about an issue that someone is paid to do. So that's about planning the conversation, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in the session. But what I want you to do is I want you to actually think about your experience, and before the meeting tomorrow night, I want you to think about going back is if you've had a difficult conversation, whether it be you as the receiver on the end of a difficult conversation, or if you've had to instigate a difficult conversation with somebody who you line manage. I want you to try and think about maybe one or two experiences, and depending how much experience you have in doing this, I'd like you to think about an experience where it hasn't gone so well, and an experience where maybe it has gone quite well. And I want you to think about what were the differences there. Was there anything that actually made it go really well that didn't actually happen in the meeting, that didn't go very well? What were the things that actually control that? Was it location? Was it timing? Was it body language? Was it that you didn't plan for it, or you were caught on the back foot, or it was unexpected, or whatever it is? But I just want you to kind of just reflect on a couple of those different meetings and think about the reasons why, and compare and contrast those two. Now, we're going to be sharing that with not necessarily with the whole group tomorrow night, but in small groups, and talking about your experiences of how it's worked, how you've planned for things before, and then we're going to be moving into some situations where we're actually going to do some role play. We're going to actually have a little bit of fun with this, but with a serious note as well of actually practicing and playing out these situations and observing each other as well, to actually start to to understand a little bit more about it. And the last thing I would give you, something that's been told to me 2 or 3 times, is actually if you remove, like I said before, if you remove any personal connotations, and if you think about, well, the one thing that this is about is this good enough for the kids of Acklam Grange? And if the situation you're about to tackle, if you're not happy with that situation and you don't feel that it's good enough for the kids of Acklam Grange, and also if you're a parent yourself, would you be happy as a parent knowing that this is happening, to your kids in the school that your kids go to? If the answer to all those was, well, no, I'm not happy, either as a parent or as a leader in the school, then if you let this go and if you duck the conversation, then you are just happy and you're compliant to this, and that's weak leadership. So if you know about it and you're not happy, you must tackle it, because by not tackling it, you are part of the problem, and you're just happy to let that go, and then that reflects on your standards as well. So when we start to think deeply about that, it really starts to hit home that actually, no, I wouldn't be happy with this. Well, I need to do something about it. And however hard it is to do about it, it's going to be a lot harder when you have to explain to those parents or to the head teacher or to somebody else that actually, yes, I did know about it, but I was too weak to actually deal with it. So have a think about that. Have a think about your experiences. We will have a good chat about that tomorrow night. I'd like to bring your ideas to the session. And like I say, we will make it very practical. And when you come to the session, if you can sit in mixed faculty groups as much as possible, so with people who you don't normally work with, and hopefully it will be quite mixed if it's just a middle and senior leader audience for tomorrow night, and we will get it going when we're there. Okay, thank you very much.